really has been really cognizant about trying to keep abreast of changing patterns in international business, and also trying to make the Bahamas more competitive like other jurisdictions. So just like when we talk about wealth management and asset management, we spoke about some of the features of why persons want to do those things in the Bahamas, why they want to come here. When it comes to e-business, again, we're looking at some of the same factors, such as the availability of telecommunication and the pricing of telecommunication. We look at availability of technical expertise. We look at our political and economic stability, the accessibility of the jurisdictions, because we have flights coming here from all over the world. And you know that the New Day government is out there promoting the Bahamas, like all previous prime ministers would have done, which is to go out there and promote the Bahamas and try to, I guess, stimulate more people to actually do business in the Bahamas. And you see the doors are now being opened for us to do business with people from Dubai, Panama, Los Angeles, more business even from Canada itself, even though Canada has been a long time partner of the Bahamas. So all of these are part of the features that the Bahamas has to offer, and as it strives to become not just a e-business hub, but also a digital assets hub. Any comments? No? So in this space and in this designation that you're getting now, there's lots of different aspects of doing business from in the Bahamas and from within the Bahamas. There are lots of different things that you can go into as a certified financial planner. So you can go the wealth management route from the offshore sector. You can do the corporate management aspect, even from in the domestic banks, or you can actually advise persons who have their own business. If you wanted to partner with someone who's doing accounting, you can partner with them and their clients and advising them as to how they can plan for retirement or how they can establish a business. Or you can actually spring off from this and actually start to draft business plans for persons who want to go into business. And you can actually do research on the type of business that the person wants to go into. So one thing about our e-commerce legislation is that it provides for you to do business over the internet. And by doing business over the internet, it opened up the door again for you to advise clients as to how they can go about doing business in other jurisdictions. Yes, you may have to do some research to find out the requirements in those jurisdictions, but you will also be able to advise them as to the advantages and disadvantages of doing business outside of the jurisdiction. So of course, the first thing you'll have to do is to set up a website, make sure that they have an electronic signature, and also advise them of the documents that by law cannot be done electronically. And those things are wills, which we covered already, trusts, which we would have mentioned, conveyances of real property, of course, cannot be done electronically, court orders, enduring powers of attorney, deeds and documents, those things cannot be done electronically. So under the Electronic Communication and Transaction Act, a transaction, once the writing, the contract, or the signature is generated electronically, they have to meet the requirements under the Act. And the Act has specific consumer protection provisions where goods are being purchased for household or personal use. So vendors who must provide consumers with a record of the transaction in writing, and they have to ensure that the consumer has expressly consented to the transaction being conducted. So if you notice now, a lot of Bahamians have put their businesses online They no longer need a storefront to carry that overhead expense, and everything is done electronically. So reliance on the admissibility of electronic communication in evidence is based on the following condition: reliability of the manner in which the electronic communication was generated, stored, and transmitted, the reliability of the manner in which the integrity of the information was maintained, the manner in which the originator was identified, and the relevant factor. The Act also allows for a contract to be formed and documents notarized and information delivered or documents served electronically under certain specified conditions. So you see now the ease of doing business in terms of Bahamians and promoting their products abroad has actually been made with less restriction after the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act. So the Act also sets down very specific procedures for intermediaries, and the intermediaries are persons, including hosts, who send, receive, or store information electronically. Now, the minister can appoint an e-commerce advisory board, and they would advise on e-commerce in the Bahamas. So tied into e-commerce is data protection. And under our Data Protection Act, it says that the data controller has to make sure that the personal data is secured. The processor is the person who possesses the personal data on behalf of a data controller. So a data controller could be an institution, it could be an insurance company, it could be a doctor's office. All of those are data controllers. And the data is actually the information that they have on the person themselves. So the Act itself, the Data Protection Act, refers to both public and private sector. And it does not apply to personal data which is obtained or used for matters relating to national security. Always remember that matters related to national security fall outside of the Data Protection Act. So the Act only applies to data controllers who are connected to the Bahamas. And connected means that the controller is ordinarily resident, or it's a company incorporated or registered in the Bahamas, or it is an individual who maintains an office or branch or agency, or they have some kind of practice in the Bahamas. A data controller is not established in the Bahamas, but it uses equipment in this jurisdiction. So they would still be classified as a data controller. So the data controller must be satisfied of the following principles relating to collection, quality, and use of personal data. And that is that the data should be collected and used fairly and by lawful means. The data should also be accurate and kept up to date. The data should be kept for specific purposes, and it should be adequate, relevant, and not excessive in relation to the purpose for which it is kept. So that means that once a data controller collects data on a particular person for a particular purpose, you cannot go outside of that purpose for which the data is being kept. The data controller must be satisfied of the following principles relating to the collection, quality, and use of personal data. The data should not be disclosed in a manner that is inconsistent with the purpose for which it was kept. It should not be kept for longer than necessary, except if you're using it for historical or research or statistical data. And also, the data should be kept securely from unauthorized access, alteration, disclosure, destruction, or accidental loss. So for most entities, especially in the financial sector, we know that each regulator in their laws have their own prescribed time for the collection and retention of data. And so the data controller must make sure that they adhere to those time period. So under the Data Protection Act, the persons who collect and use personal data on individuals, they are required to observe and abide by the standards of confidentiality. They are prohibited from transferring personal data by jurisdictions with less stringent data protection legislation. And so that means that if the data controller is backing up his information and sending it to another jurisdiction outside of the Bahamas, they have to make sure that the data protection laws in that jurisdiction are on par with those in the Bahamas. But it cannot be less stringent. Now, individuals have a right to access their personal data that is kept on them, except, of course, where the personal data is kept for the purposes of preventing, detecting, or investigating offenses, or of course for prosecutions or tax collection or assessments, or if the personal data is prejudicial to the security or maintenance of good order in a prison or detention center. And the right of access does not apply to legislation for the protection of individuals against financial loss or from dishonesty or malpractice. So where information is inaccurate on an individual, they have a right for rectification or erasure of personal data. An individual also has a right to prohibit the processing of personal data for the purpose of direct marketing. The act itself imposes on the data controller a statutory duty of care for the subject data, and the data subject may bring a lawsuit against the controller for breach of their statutory duty of care. In the interest of national security, as determined by the Commissioner of Police or the Commodore of the Defense Force, for the purposes of criminal investigations, prosecutions, and the collection of taxes, duties, and similar levies, the protection of international relations of the country, or to prevent injury, damages, or loss to person or property. So any disclosure required by enactment of law or the enforcement of a court order, or any disclosure required for the purpose of obtaining legal advice or required as part of a legal proceeding. Any disclosure made to the data subject concerned or to a person acting on his behalf, or any disclosure made at the request or consent of the data subject or person acting on his behalf. So of course, the law requires the appointment of a data commissioner whose responsibility is to ensure that all data controllers adhere to the requirements under the Act. So in addition to us and the strategy that was developed for e-business and the legislation that was passed, along with the Data Protection Act, we also have the Computer Misuse Act. Because if you're going to be dealing with e-business and you have a person's data under your control, then you also need to have the protection from the use of the computer. So under the Computer Misuse Act, they have 6 offenses. And these 6 offenses carry fines. The first offense is unauthorized access to computer material, access with the intent to commit or facilitate the commission of an offense, unauthorized modification of computer material, unauthorized use or interception of computer service, unauthorized obstruction of use of computer, and unauthorized disclosure of access codes. So, even in your job, they'll always tell you that you should not allow anyone else to see your password and your passcodes. That's because it is an offense. If someone actually uses your passcodes. So that's why you always have to secure it. So under the very first offense, unauthorized access to computer material, The act says that if you knowingly or you deliberately intend to access information or programs held in a computer with the knowledge that that access is unauthorized to you, you are guilty of an offense. And the fine is $5,000 or 6 months imprisonment or both. If you are fined or imprisoned and then you commit the same act again, that is your second offense. And you'll see as we go down to others, the second offense is practically double the fine and the time. The second offense is access with the intent to commit or facilitate the commission of a crime. And in that, it says the offense is committed by any person who uses a computer to gain access to any program or data held in another computer with the intent to commit an offense. So that means that you may be trying to commit fraud, or you may trying to move information dishonestly, or trying to cause harm to someone. And that is punishable to a term of 2 or more years imprisonment. So the access to computer program or data may be authorized or unauthorized, and the commission of the offense does not have to occur at the same time as the access of the program. And of course, the offense is a fine of $10,000 or 3 years imprisonment. Unauthorized modification of computer material, which is the third one. It's that any person who deliberately or knowingly causes the unauthorized modification of the contents of any computer is also guilty of an offense. The penalty is a fine of $10,000, 1 year imprisonment, or both. If there is any damages, there's a fine of $20,000 or 3 years in prison, or both. And then the act actually explains what is damage. So unauthorized use or interception of computer service. If a person knowingly secures unauthorized access to a computer for the purpose of obtaining, directing, or indirecting directly any computer service, or if they intercept or cause to be intercepted without authority, either directly or indirectly, any function of a computer by use of a device for such interception, they will be guilty of an offense. And the fine for that is $10,000 or 3 years in prison, or both. And that can go up to a fine of $20,000. And if you damage the computer, there's a fine of $50,000 and imprisonment of up to 5 years. So when you look at all of these various offenses that can come under Computer Misuse Act, you see that they're tied into the e-strategy that the Bahamas has launched quite a few years going back. The unauthorized obstruction of use of computer, which is the fifth one. The penalty is a fine of $10,000 or 3 years imprisonment, or you can have a maximum of up to $20,000 or 5 years in prison. And again, if you damage the computer, you pay a fine of $50,000 or up to a maximum of 5 years in prison. The last one, which is unauthorized access of disclosure of access codes. Of course, if you knowingly and without authority disclose any password or access code and any other means of gaining access to any program, you're guilty of an offense. The penalty is $10,000 or a maximum term of 3 years And any subsequent offense is $20,000 or maximum of 5 years. And if the offense involves a protected computer, that means that one that's either with the defense force or the police force or public utilities or medical, on any one of the essential services of government, then the penalty is a fine of $100,000 or 20 years in prison. And the act itself gives the police wide powers to search and seize under specified conditions. And the court has the power to order forfeiture of any property which was in possession or under control of a person convicted on an offense under the act. But being mindful also of the Data Protection Act, you do know that data controllers have a duty of confidentiality. And that duty of confidentiality is a contractual one. So even when you're dealing with clients and you're trying to draft the financial planning or advise on retirement or advise on investments, you do have a duty of confidentiality. And with that duty, you'll see it in the Banks and Trust Companies Regulations Act, and is actually enshrined in law in that act. But it speaks to having that duty of care. Maud, you had a question?
No, just signing in on another device.
Oh, okay. So that duty of care is a fiduciary one. And under the Banks and Trust Companies Regulation Act, it says that the banker owes its customer that duty of care. And of course, you can be sued for breach of contract, for unlawful or unauthorized disclosure of information to a third party. And the duty applies not just to client information, but also to a client's financial affairs generally. So whenever you speak about that duty of confidentiality, there are 4 exceptions where, as a banker, you can disclose a person's information. And one is under compulsion of law. So that's where there is suspicious transaction and you need to file a report with the FIU or the police. Or if the matter is in the public's interest, which means that the institution itself will disclose the information to the police. If it's in the bank's interest, which means that the bank itself decides that it wants to disclose because it would be in their best interest, especially if their license is at risk. And fourthly, if you have the express or implied consent of your clients. So if you tie in the duty of confidentiality to the Data Protection Act, you'll see that it's designed to protect the privacy of personal information on individuals, particularly consumers locally and jurisdictionally, and persons collecting and using personal data on individuals are required to observe and abide by specific standards of confidentiality, especially when it comes to trying to move data from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. The standard of confidentiality, just like the standard for data protection, has to be the same. It can't be less stringent. So for financial services, you're required to effectively process the personal information of your customers or your clients within the provisions of the Data Protection Act. And at the same time, you have to maintain the statutory and the common law duty not to disclose information to other parties. Financial service institutions must obtain their customers' prior approval before transmitting personal information through its computer system to a third-party company within its group. And so that's why you see a lot of the commercial banks have that provision in their customer agreement, whereby you give your consent for other members within the group to contact you. Or you give your consent that there is another entity within the group that certain functions have been outsourced to. Any comments? No comments? I don't think I need to talk much on VAT because I think you all know VAT by heart, especially now it's 10%. Correct?
Still don't know where the VAT money gone.
It is placed in the consolidated fund.
Oh, okay.
And you know where the consolidated fund goes? No? All the expenses are paid from the consolidated fund.
Which expenses?
All of the government ministry.
Ah, okay. Does that include, that don't include like Ministry of Education and stuff, does it?
All of it.
I thought they said, I thought some of that works at Ministry of Education said that like the repairs that are being done at the schools and stuff, she said that comes out of NIB.
Why would that come out of NIB?
I don't know. Why do you think that like when you were speaking on the NIB funds?
Only that come from NIB is if they're borrowing it from NIB.
Mhm.
So say if they have a budgeted amount and they have exceeded their budget, but these things are necessary, they may borrow it.
Okay, okay.
But NIB is not set up to pay for repairs to school buildings.
That's what I,
Yeah, it's only for social matters.
okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, they don't go together. But yeah, you're trying to figure out where it goes. It goes to support the government ministries. Now you're gonna have an issue, even though they decreased it to 10% and they have it on every item. You have the ballooning of civil service. So as they hire more and more persons, you're gonna have to pay out more and more money. Now, the Prime Minister says that he is beginning to see the fruits of his travel. And so hopefully the fruits of his travel will equate to money.
Hopefully.
Well, that's the only way to pay for all of these consultants and embassies that they're establishing around the world. But again, the drive is for Bahamians to establish their own businesses. And I think that's something that you, and along with all of your predecessors who did this course, that is where your aim should be, encouraging people to start their own business. Helping them to write business plans and submitting them in order for them to obtain loans. And then looking at their finances and trying to see how you can plan for their future. What do they need to start a business? How long will it take for the business to be, I guess, feasible? Looking at retirement, how much do they need to save? Looking at investments. When would be a good time for them to send their children off to school? What do they have to save to go off to school? What is the best bank to go to for a mortgage? Do you really need a mortgage? Can you build it out of your pocket?
Okay.
So these are the kind of things, this designation, it should be do in being a consultant. That's what financial planning is all about.
Okay.
Because I know a lot of people trying to figure out, well, how am I going to use this designation? So if you're in, let's say if you're in a commercial bank and you're a loan officer, you can use this designation. Because that's practically what you're doing. You want to borrow money to buy a car. Then they prepare all of their finances. And then you look at the finances and you look at it and you say, I don't see how you can make this. How can you do this? Explain to me how you're going to make these payments. And then advise them by turning them on maybe to a different car, a less expensive one. But you can also do it by teaming up together and forming your own little consultancy business where one person, if they have a background in insurance, they can do the insurance arm of it. The other person can do the lending part of it, advising clients where to go to borrow money. Another one could be in the investment arm of it. In terms of whether you're going to invest in stocks and equity, whether you're going to be doing crypto, all of those things you could do with this designation. But you have to make the designation work for you. So let me ask you all some questions. How many justices are appointed to the Supreme Court bench?
Six.
That's an easy one.
Five.
No,
Is it one?
no.
Three.
No.
I know.
Mm.
That's a good question. That's a good sound question.
And I stop right there. I stop right there.
12.
I have nothing else to say. I just given the questions and I want to see, you know.
Is it 10?
No,
Okay.
12.
the answer's already been given.
Well,
I have no other answer. I'm finished with that for now.
Miss Hatcher, when you give that answer,
Someone did.
oh, but you didn't confirm or
No, I'm not confirming. I will be denying. What is required for a trust to be valid?
You must own the asset outright.
No. The key word is valid. You know what is required for a will to be valid? No? What's
is it
required?
death?
No, for a will to be valid, what
Oh,
will
It
valid?
must be signed enough witnesses?
Yes. So what makes a trust valid? It has its own requirements.
A trust is created on, I guess, intent.
Mm-mm. For a trust to be valid, there must be 3 certainties. So you were getting it when you said the first one, but it's called certainty of intent, yes. Certainty of subject matter, which means that you must own the assets, and certainty of objects. You have to know who the beneficiaries are.
I gotta put my book out.
Yeah. So it's the 3 certain. Okay. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
An IBC, International Business Company, must maintain what documents at its registered office? That's my coaster. Any idea? Oh, sorry. I almost ran over my dog. An IBC?
Certificate of good standing? Oh,
No.
yeah.
You know what a certificate of good standing is?
Nope.
A certificate of good standing is a document that you request from the Registrar General when you're doing business. So let's just say you were doing business with a company, and let's say you have a company called Company X, and you want to do some business with AG Electric. And AG Electric will say, before I can do business with you, I have to know that your company is in good standing, which means that you've met all of the regulatory requirements under the Companies Act or under the IBC Act, and you've paid all of your fees to the government. Then they will issue a certificate of good standing. So that's upon request. So
Okay.
what documents should an international business company maintain at its registered office?
Is it the memorandum of, the memorandum?
Memorandum and articles of association, that's one. What else?
Who is directors are like a list of.
Yes, that's two. Register of directors and officers. Could I add to that the register of members? So it's register of the share register, or you could call it the register of members. You have the register of officers and directors. You have the memorandum and articles of association, and I think that's about it. Yeah. Let's see what else. The digital assets space was legislated to facilitate what? Why do we legislate our digital space? Come on, it's always in the paper every day. It was in the paper today. Why did we legislate our digital assets?
To use cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, more or less. You won't see crypto in your thing, but it really was to issue the sale of digital tokens. Can you tell me some of the saving schemes that persons participate in when they do not have a private pension scheme?
Some of the saving schemes?
That someone who is contemplating retirement, that they would.
I mean, if they're preparing for retirement or contemplating retirement.
Preparing. They'll be preparing or contemplating, but you can't be contemplating. You have to prepare for this.
Right. So would that be like the investments, like the bonds and stocks and stuff?
But in your notice, the central bank was able to determine exactly what products they actually.
They use deposits, like fixed deposits. They utilize.
Yes, right. They deal with they do deposits with banks and credit unions and annuities. Okay. Let's look at the survivor's benefit. You remember NIB had a lot of little pamphlets?
Yeah.
Okay, so a widow or widower is entitled to survivor's benefit if they meet what qualifications?
Is one once they don't get married again?
What else?
If that they can prove their spouse was the breadwinner.
Yes. What else? They have a child under the age of 16. And they're older than 40 and incapable of earning more than half of the insurable wage. How can a will be challenged? Based on what?
They could challenge it on the intent. Like if the intent was if they feel like.
No, it won't be intent. I think the word that you would use for challenge would be knowledge and approval. One could be on knowledge and approval. What other ground can you challenge your will on?
Undue influence or duress.
Yes, and one more.
Fraud?
Fraud, yes. An investment fund which has no more than 15 investors holding equity interests, with the majority having power to appoint and remove the operators of the fund, is what type of smart fund? Is it a 1? Is it a 2? Is it a 3? Is it a 5?
Okay, repeat the question.
An investment fund which has no more than 15 investors holding equity interests, with the majority having power to appoint or remove the operators of the fund, is what type of fund? Smart fund 1, 2, 3, or 5?
3.
Okay. To address inflation, some pension plans are indexed to what?
Ms. Archer, you can repeat the question, please?
To address inflation, some pension plans are indexed to what?
Another type of investment fund?
No. I'll give you a clue, there are letters.
Letters.
Mhm. To address inflation, some pension plans are indexed to. Give you an example. BISX, CBB, GDP, CPI.
Stock exchange?
No.
To B6?
No. That's the same thing she said. No.
It's
Oh, it's
Consumer Price Index.
I heard what he said.
It's Consumer Price Index.
That's right. You see how easy this thing is?
Mhm.
What
The
was the
rule-
answer, Ms. Archer?
Don't ask me.
Ms. Archer, I couldn't hear. She was talking so low.
Well, whoever said it could tell you.
I can repeat the answer, please.
Consumer Price Index.
Okay, thank you.
You couldn't hear that?
No, it was really low.
Okay, a self-employed person who fails to pay contributions to NIB will be subject to what fine? $3 months in jail or $1,000, 3 months and $1,500, or 6 months, 1,000, or 6 months, 2,500.
6 months and $1,000.
Okay. What is an investment condominium?
Sorry.
That is your current Attorney General prized product. Is an investment condominium a company? Is it a company?
It's a fund. It's a fund.
You sure it's a fund? Is it a partnership?
Isn't it a contractual agreement between one or more persons?
Yes. So it's not a partnership, it's not a trust, and it's not a company. For a trust, if you're transferring your assets into a trust and you transfer it at an undervalue with the intent to defraud, when is it voidable?
When is the trust voidable?
The assets in the trust. Your intent was defraud. When is it voidable?
The moment it was put together. Eh?
I'm thinking before it's even transferred to the trustees.
No, it would have been transferred. But the intent was fraud. So that means the creditors are coming after it. What's the time frame? How long do the creditors have to go after those assets that were placed in the trust?
3 years?
Too much,
A year?
too little.
2 years?
Okay. A disposition in a will is not valid if what? Disposition. You know what a disposition is, right?
I'm trying to think. No, not off the bat. I'm trying to think.
Okay, try to think then. Disposition means to dispose, right? So that means that you are giving something to someone. So a disposition in a will is not valid if what?
The person is still living?
But it should be living. What do you mean?
I mean, because the person don't get until you die, right? So they can't receive it until you die.
Yeah, that's correct, but that's not the answer. Remember, will is very technical, you know.
Is it the part where a person can leave property to someone and then dispose of it, the same property, like through a sale or by a gift before the death?
Yeah, but that's not this. This has to do with the legality of a will. So a disposition in a will is not valid if the direction follows the signature.
Oh, you have
Yeah.
to sign at the end of it.
Yes.
Oh,
Gets real technically.
what?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find that. Not to. Private individual deposits, inclusive of savings, fixed and demand balances, grew in 2017 from what to what? Private individual deposits, inclusive of savings, fixed and demand balances, grew in 2017 from what to what? That percentages.
$5 billion to 10 billion.
Percentage.
Mm, 50%.
2.1?
0.9%?
Mm, 10% then.
They went from
Point-
X to X.
The expenditure you said? What is the question? Sorry.
Private individual deposits.
Deposits, okay.
Private individual deposits, inclusive of savings, fixed and demand balances, grew in 2017 from what to what?
Grew from 26.7% to 27.7% of GDP.
All right. You found that, hey?
Yes. I couldn't have guessed that.
Okay, let me ask you this one about VAT. The filing of VAT returns for businesses with an annual turnover of less than 5 million is what frequency?
Quarterly.
The filing of VAT returns for businesses with an annual turnover of less than 5 million, what frequency? How often do they file?
I knew. I say it's either quarterly or annually. Maybe
Okay.
quarterly. I'm trying to think of
Yes.
quarterly.
Yes. The Electronic Communication Act, which we just went through, clarifies the following are exempted from the legislation. What's exempted?
The Electronic Act.
The Electronic Communication Act clarifies there's certain things that are exempted from the legislation.
Data concerning national security. Was that the Data Protection Act?
Yeah, that's the Data Protection Act. It's exemption from the Electronic Communications Act. Remember when I spoke to certain things that cannot be done electronically?
Oh, cannot be done. We want to be a will.
Yes.
So will you cannot do you cannot sign that electronically.
No.
Okay.
That's
So
and
will a trust.
all right.
No. Mm-hmm.
Trust.
There are others.
Court orders.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be all mixed up, so you have to make sure you know that.
Mortgages.
You saw mortgages there?
I'm guessing.
No.
I'm just thinking based on okay.
No. You have to know that. How is a foundation similar to a trust?
It's created to transfer assets.
Mm-hmm. What else? In a foundation, you don't transfer assets, remember. Assets are placed in the foundation for a particular purpose. So a foundation is similar to a trust in its provision against forced heirship. You have a lot of
What?
Provisions against forced heirship.
For forced heirship.
Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of persons from forced heirship jurisdictions that are coming to the Bahamas to establish foundations. Give you two more and then that's it. Let's see. Financial planning should include what? What should be included in financial planning? You should know this over your head now. We just spoke about this.
Retirement planning and the business, establishing the business.
Yes, what else? Retirement planning. What else? What else I mentioned?
Business plan to establish a business.
Huh?
Insurance.
Insurance, yes, and investment.
Yes.
Yes. We talk about a protocol and executive entity. Remember that? And an executive entity can be used as a protector. You know what a protector is? Yes or no? In a foundation or in a trust, you can have a protector. A protector is a person that gives advice. In a trust, they would give advice to the trustee. In the foundation, it would give advice to the council members. So one of the main reasons why an executive entity would be used as a protector is what? Why would someone use an executive entity as a protector? Instead of using a natural living person, they would use an actual entity. Why would they do that?
Shared a risk.
Yes, I heard the word risk. Yes, and so it is because you could purchase liability insurance. So y'all get this, y'all just need to study some more. Y'all have this.
How much questions is the exam, Ms. Archer?
Oh, now you asking me these technical questions. Is it 50 or 75?
I think you said 80.
Yeah. Oh,
How many you said?
I think 80.
Something like that. I didn't write down how many.
I saw at the beginning it said essay as well, or they're not gonna have the essay portion on that.
I don't remember no essay, but I thought finalists were choice.
Oh, okay.
I don't know about an essay. I thought you had the term paper.
So the exam 50%, module 5 and 6.
Yeah.
And it's computer-based exam.
Yes, it is. You get the results as soon as you say finish.
We were doing it wherever we log in, or we have to go to the office.
I think it's
Pardon me?
at the office.
Okay.
At the office. Like it says, the exam is not that hard. You just have to read your notes and be prepared. Of course, you just use logic. Because certain things you'll see off the top are incorrect. Without even thinking hard, you'll be able to say, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Ms. Archer, do you know when we'll get the grades from the assignment?
No, I could ask Miguel to find out. But you just sent it in, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like we'll get it before the exam, or?
I don't know. I'll send him a note. So he could send you all an email.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I'll send it to him. All right, so let me send him that now. So he can send something to you. And we'll go from there.
How long is the exam?
Is it how long? I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. Let me see. Oh, I don't know if he could come on though. Let me see, Miguel. Let me let him put all of that in an email to you. I think that'll be easier. So then you'll have everything in one place. So you want to know how long is the exam? Total number of questions, right? Uh-huh. And it's the exam at this. And when will they get the grades? Okay.
Is it a specific time to start or anytime?
What, the exam?
Yes.
Okay. I may put this in
We
here.
have the dates, but it doesn't give a
Date.
time.
Okay, I'm asking him date and time. Okay. Okay, I have that.
Sorry, Ms.
date.
Archer, we're going the BIPs to take the exam, or are we doing it from home?
No, it's normally done at BIFs, but I wrote that question in here for him too. So he'll confirm that too. Okay, okay. When will they receive the marks from the paper? Okay, so I have that all, I have it here. How long is the exam, the date and the time, the total number of questions? Is the exam at BIF's office? Because I think it normally is. And when will they receive the marks from the paper? Okay, and I'll tell him, please answer. Send a response. Okay, it's gone. I sent it to him. And if the date of the exam change, he'll let you know, but it's set for July the 30th, so you have a whole month. All right. Happy reading, and like I say, you don't want to wait too late to study, because when we do this again, like you see most of the information for like the retirement section, I'll have to update all of those with the new actuarial report, the new central bank report, and so all of those numbers will change.
There's so much information, Ms. Archer.
It ain't that much. Make sure you read the investor guide on the products. The investor guide on the products, and then of course on the wills. If you know the products and you know the will, and you learn about the funds, you'll be able to pass it. Many have walked this road before and passed it on the first go.
So if we don't pass it on the first go, when would the second we be able to take it?
Miguel will be able to tell you. They'll set a date. They'll set a date, and all you'll have to do is just push and tell them you don't want it too long. Because some people normally will take it and they didn't study at all. And then when they want to do the second time, they want to wait 3 and 4 months. But if you've studied, you'd want to try to do it as soon as possible.
Okay, so you say focus on the investment guide with the products, bills, and funds?
The funds is an investment guide also. And you could also read the handout on the funds. So you're talking about the funds, the icon, the executive entity, the private trust companies, the IBCs. And then of course the wills. There's only just a couple of questions on, I think 2 questions on VAT. And then you have to focus on the retirement.
What about the Inheritance Act and all those other acts,
And NIB.
NIB and stuff?
No, you don't have to worry about the acts itself, but that whole section on retirement planning, you need to read that on NIB and those brochures.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The whole manual?
No, that's not the whole thing. That is not.
It's a lot though.
Yeah, it is a lot. It is a lot.
Ms. Archer, I see that an email was sent last week with a document from Deloitte and Touche. I was not in the class last week, so is that something we need to study as well?
An email?
Yes.
I just send that for information, eh?
Okay.
Yeah, just send that for information. That's not an exam.
Pardon?
I say send that for information that wasn't in the exam.
Okay.
Yeah. That had to do with the research paper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what that was for.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I sent it in case anybody wanted to read up before they finish the paper. But you all are done now, so don't worry about that.
So we need to know about the computer misuse part of it, the data protection, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 1 or 2 questions on that. I told you it's not hard. I think the hardest part, I mean, in terms of not hard, but in terms of trying to remember is the figures under the retirement planning section. And that's about it. All right. So let me push Miguel now to answer you all, so you
And-
can begin to prepare.
So can we reach out to you, like if we like going through, like studying, if we have any questions? Is best
Yeah, that's
that-
fine. Yeah, you can shoot me an email.
Okay.
That's fine. If you go over your notes and you get confuddled, yes, it's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So have a good evening. Relax your brain now. And then plan your study guide.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Evening.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Good evening.
Okay.
Bye.